So in today's analysis, we're going to be looking at Just Like John, and it'd be great if we had someone called John to look at the piece, but we don't. We have Marcus Venables, and it's a real pleasure that you can join us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, and looking forward to going into this piece a little bit.
So the piece is written in the style of an old-fashioned how do you do meetings, so I think it would be appropriate to ask you, how do you do?
I do very well these days, and it's maybe I'm not as loud and boisterous as this piece, but definitely I'm filled with the spirit and excited to tell the world my story.
Excellent. I'm sure we can bring out some loud and boisterous as we go through. So, we asked you if you had a particular piece that you'd like to look at, and you chose this piece. So I think the first question that would be quite interesting is, why did you choose Just Like John to have a look at today?
Yeah, so I think the reason I chose this piece, few, obviously, and first one being it was written for the Canadian Staff Band back in the early 70s. The reformation of the Canadian Staff Band happened in '69 under Norman Bearcroft, and he wrote lots of music, exciting and a little bit different, to sort of help get the band energized and get the music out there, and this was one of those kind of staples that really put the band on the map. And inside this piece, there's so many little things. Basically, the whole kitchen sink idea is in this piece, but it also kind of plays a historical role as far as percussion writing, as far as just some of the tricks and the range and all those kind of layers all put into this little 3-minute piece.
Fantastic. I look forward to discovering some of those things that you mentioned there as we go through. My next question would be, when did you first come across this piece?
So I think my first listen to this piece might have been when the Canadian Staff Band re-recorded it in around '99, I think it was, on the In Tribute CD, and that's a CD that features both the music of Redhead and Bearcroft, two previous bandmasters of the Staff Band, and I listened to that recording endlessly. There might have been a previous listen before, at a concert or something, but maybe I wasn't aware of it as much there. But yeah, In Tribute, '99.
Now, I may get some hate from banders for this and potentially sacked from this podcast, but I think the first time I came across this was a vocal arrangement at a territorial music school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just thought I'd get that one out there and air the laundry there.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned a little bit about the context of this piece being written. Is there any more that you can tell us about that first performance and how it is perceived?
So I think as you mentioned already, it's a playful piece, right? It's a piece that's sort of supposed to describe the meeting at nighttime, the testimony meeting, where we sing a song and then somebody stands up and says a testimony. And as Bearcroft kind of says in his notes, some of the testimonies are pretty standard. Some of them are a little bit out there, and then some are repeated. Right? It's the old faithful salvationist that says, by the grace of God I'm saved and happy. That kind of faithful testimony, and that's reflected in this piece, right? We have the straight up tune presented a couple times, right? I want to be ready. I want to be right at section A, and then we get some other stuff happen, right? But it's very reflective of that. So from the side of imagination or in innovation, I guess you could say that this piece is fun, right? And how many pieces in this time frame being published were of this fun sort of style? We obviously had marches, we had those kind of things, and Ray Stedman Allen currently in the early '70s, was coming up with pieces like Wonders Begin, and then we started to see the emergence of the musicals from the Gowans and Larsons, started to get set to band arrangements. So Hosea, and then there's sparkling slides and those kind of upbeat excitement pieces. But this one adds a layer of sort of virtuosic capability in it, right? We've got the range that is crazy expansive in this piece. You need technique, you need flash and dash, as it were. So I think because of those particular elements in the piece, it sort of stands alone, and it sort of sets the bar as we go forward in Salvation Army music making from a fun entertainment perspective.
Flash and dash technique, I like that. That's a really good one. We'll get that down in the quotes book.
Yeah.
So I think it is really interesting, because this piece was published in 1974, sort of thinking about the other pieces that are around, obviously to us listeners that weren't around in that era. It perhaps doesn't seem as groundbreaking because we know what comes next, but looking at just what else was published in this festival series score, you've got stuff like the Warrior Psalm, and it really does shock how different in style this music is, I guess. Do you think now would be a good time to delve into the score and go through section by section?
Yeah, I think so. So I kind of mentioned already what the piece is doing. So right off the bat, we get almost a quasi swing style, right? Not your typical like eighth notes equal, the triplet kind of thing. But Norman explicitly says, the da da ba da, right, is to be played in more of a swing style, right? And so that tune presents itself straightforward, basic harmony, counter melody, second time through, kind of thing that comes out. Then we get to sort of the testimony standing up period. And so at B section, and again, I'm not sure how many, it's not like it was revolutionary to have sections stand up and be featured, because I think bands were doing that with marches and obviously soloists would stand up. But this piece takes it to that next level where multiple people through the band are standing up. So first time at B, you have the solo cornet stand up and is shouting his testimony, and then second time through, the flugelhorns turn to stand up and give their testimony. So right from there, you've sort of featured some different elements to your Salvation Army band piece. As we progress, then we get the tune again, right? Another repeat, and people are thinking, okay, man, this is just repetitive motion. All of a sudden at D, and this kind of goes to the expansive nature of the scoring and everything that is involved in this. We get the whole horn section, which traditionally they would have stood up, but the range in which the horn section's expected to play here, coming in on those top Bs, going up to a top D in the solo horn. But layered underneath this, we have a flutter tongue from the back row. We have trills, we have flutter tongue, like I've already mentioned. From a roadmap perspective in this piece, we have two separate DSs, right? How many band pieces do we get published? And maybe typesetters would nowadays try and avoid this because it's really confusing to read, and no doubt has caught many people off guard. But two separate DSs and a coda jump and multiple repeats and I guess trying to save paper. And then percussion, like I said, there's a whole different element to percussion that we'll talk about. High E's in the cornets and trombones, right? How many band pieces do we get that we have high E's written? And top D's for the horns. And then we get solos standing, sections standing, etc. So as we sort of see right off the bat, there's, for a 3.5 minute piece, man alive, we've jam-packed a lot in here. And I think then the piece kind of continues on. We transition into the relative minor, right? So we're in F concert, and then at section F, we go into this D minor concert section that features the tubas, right? Just this kind of counter melody. And Matthew, as you mentioned, the vocalized version of this piece that you would have heard like staff songsters sing or sung at TMS's, a really fun element to it with the guys singing this section. But yeah, so that goes on, and then we finally get the trombone appear, which this would have been written for Bob Merritt. We've got the gliss, as I mentioned, and going up to the high E. And in the program note, again, it's mentioned, the lower octave has been given for, for safety's sake or whatever. But I just think it's quite incredible that they would have moved forward with publishing this kind of expansive range, just realistically knowing that, okay, it's probably not going to get nailed, or it's going to be missed a little bit, and not even cue it in like a flugelhorn part or a solo cornet part or anything like that. Section H, and this is when it becomes the percussion feature. So I want to quickly now go into the percussion writing, because at this point in time in Salvation Army banding, we were still like on the verge of like featuring drum kits, right? It was still the side bass drum and snare drum, cymbal, we have timpani written in this piece, and there was all of a sudden the emergence of brushes being used on cymbals through this time. So it's almost like Trade got a shipment of brushes in and they just sent it out to core bands or something, and they're like, oh yeah, we can start using these. Obviously, in the historical context of like rock bands and stuff coming out in the 60s, and obviously jazz bands, swing bands before that, drum kits were being used, right? Pretty widely, but it was a slow acceptance into Salvation Army bands, probably just down to ability and whether or not the equipment was there. So we see in this piece, if it's written today, obviously things would be different, but I think there would be a swing drum part written all the way through. It wouldn't just be this snare drum on offbeats. It would literally be a drum break in here accompanied by the tubas, because as I mentioned, we look at Wonders Begin, right? That has no kit part, but realistically today that has a kit part. A similar piece on the recording that this staff band originally released this on, the Gospel Train, another Bearcroft piece called Three Spirituals is on there, and this is from 71. And he has a ton of swing cymbal writing on that. Once again, it's not your standard light walk kind of drum kit part, but I think it was Merv Kitney in the CSB at the time that had to figure out how to play this type of drum set part. So in this section in H, right, we've got this snare drum triplet-y kind of feel, but we also have the brushes on the cymbal, right? And so nowadays, like I said, you would see that all being played by one guy, not me, fortunately. I'll kind of touch on this at the end a little bit, but I think that plays a role as well as far as expanding the viewpoint of how we can write our percussion writing in the 70s, right? And moving forward, as I said, pieces like Sparkling Slides in 75 released the next year, that had the hi-hat written, right? And kind of more ambitious idea of writing for percussion. And then we started to see it become a little more mainstream in a piece like Consecration Hymn, where it's just a simple hymn setting, but you had, once again, brushes on a cymbal just to keep some rhythmic interest. So as we continue on in the piece, and Matthew, stop me if you have any interjections here.
But you're on a roll, just like the walking bass line at letter I.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean, walking bass line is another idea. Obviously not revolutionary from a music making standpoint, because, like I said, swing bands and all that kind of stuff. Long before this, we're doing this, but to infuse it into a Salvation Army band piece, I think it was pretty eye-opening at the time that Salvation Army bands were playing this. And then at I, we get the once again this lip trill idea, which Derek Diffie was very famous for, on top of the principal trombone playing their theme there. And so then we get into this cornet little obligato at J, right? And again, simple harmony underneath, but it just goes to show that Bearcroft was excited to feature the staff band, right? He wanted to push what they were doing and get the audience super excited about listening to the band, right? It wasn't going to be playing it safe or anything. It was going to be this virtuosic nature of the band. So that's replicated in K by the euphonious baritones. Small side note, high C's in the second baritone, right? We don't see that very much. And then you're looking at the score and you're like, okay, there's a DS. Like I mentioned, we have two DS's. So then we finally get this big build up into section M. We're still in this relative minor key of D minor, and then we come back to this testimony time, right? I want to be ready, just played by the flugel, Brian Burdett at the time. And then one last big exclamation of this tune at O. Same kind of counter melody from the Youth, but we're up to top Ds, high Es for the solo cornets. I'm amazed that they published that, right? Like it's funny. And as we come towards the end, we get a timpani bar towards the end. We get just all this cascading stuff going on, and then what's funny is all of a sudden at the last bar they decided, okay, we cannot write a top D or a super G for the solo cornet, even though it was 100% played, by the staff band. They were like, no, that's the line. We can't publish that. Like that's ridiculous. Everything else in this piece is a slightly ridiculous, but that's the line there. So there we go. So that's a brisk run through of the piece. As I said, like there's nothing groundbreaking as far as like harmonic structures or counter melody interweaving going on, but it's just fascinating to see all these other texture elements that go on to bring it to this like crazy kind of fun piece.
And of course, this piece is a very tangible remnant of Norman Bearcroft's legacy as the Canadian staff bandmaster. Are you still aware of that legacy? I take it, obviously, before your time and sort of era being in the band, but does that legacy still live on in the band now?
Yeah, funny enough, we had our 54th anniversary concert just the other week, and part of that concert we announced a new scholarship, the Norman Bearcroft Scholarship. So that involves giving one young person from the territory a scholarship to attend the Territorial Music School in the year, and so that goes under the Norman Bearcroft name, and really, like you said, that that legacy of him continues to live on in the band.
Fantastic. And this piece has a bit of a legacy on its own, inspiring other works such as Kevin Larson's Just Like Juan. So my question for you, if you could change another Salvation Army band piece, one word of the title, to make it sound a little bit more Latin American, what would it be?
You put me on the spot here. I don't know, honestly. I have no material on this, unfortunately. It'll come to me later in the day, and I'll be like.
Or perhaps we can open it up to our listeners. There's a pun there waiting to happen, isn't there? Fantastic. Have you got a particular favourite recording or performance that you've heard of the piece?
I think just because of historical sense, I love going on Regal Zonophone and hearing that original recording from '71. It doesn't have the accuracy or the style in which we would play it nowadays. But I think it's really cool to listen to that, and it takes you back and thinks, okay, '71, this is quite something. So yeah, that's that Gospel Train LP.
Fantastic, that's great. Well, Marcus, anything else to add on this piece?
Yeah, so I think my greater point at looking at this piece is to sort of realize that this is the '70s we're talking about, and as you mentioned, there's so many, the Holy Wars around this time. There's Leslie Condon coming, with great stuff. We see the emergence of Himes and Curnow and all those writers at the time. But this piece, I think, helped lay the groundwork for fun, kind of entertaining music to be used in concert, right? And so now we take that into modern day, right? And we look at the pieces that are coming out now, and there needs to be always this attempt or this acceptance of what are we perhaps not open to that is going to help push us forward from a Salvation Army band music making point of view, right? Me as a composer, I know I don't have the ability to come up with that groundbreaking thing, because I'm a little bit set in its ways. I can from a harmonic standpoint or those kind of things, but fun, engaging, virtuosic music, right? That's kind of what this piece is. And at the time, like accuracy, bands were going to cack this piece. Bands were going to flub over it or whatever. But I think the nature in which it's like, it's going to be engaging, it's going to be fun, people are going to be laughing because it's this testimony kind of aspect, right? So what piece do we need to or what type of music do we need to start seeing more of, or let's play this piece that it's all of a sudden going to open the eyes of other writers that will just see this explosion. And that can also come in the sense of styles, but also instruments, like what percussion instruments, like this didn't have a drum kit part, but what did it lead to? Like it eventually led to the infusion of drum kits. Is it a type of time signature? Is it types of we see some of the overdubbing that happens and the loop machines and those kind of things. What I guess my point is, how can we think about what the next element of Salvation Army band music making is there to come, and what piece is it going to be that we look back on in 50 years and be like, that helped set us on a path towards this entertainment piece.
Fantastic, and thank you for provoking our thoughts there with that. And indeed, thank you so much, Marcus, for joining us on Fully Scored. Thank you for your time that you've put into researching that, and for that real window into such a fun piece of music, delivered in such a fun way. I very much hope that we can hear from you again in the future.
Thanks for having me, guys, and look forward to seeing more from Fully Scored in the future.